What's up, 828 family? Man, I'm super excited to share this with you today. Been putting it off for a little while just because I kind of wanted to just do my own research and spend some time before we brought to you the newest member of the family, which you have seen that in some of our episodes recently, plus the one that Brooke did when we brought it home. I did pick up a 2022 Husqvarna TX300i. Of course, this is a 300cc two-stroke, and man, I am absolutely in love with this bike so far. But what I wanted to do is put some time on it, and I have 11.1 hours on it now. Spent 5 of those hours just doing the break-in period like the manual says to. I wanted to be a good boy, I guess you could say, and just do it the right way to give you some accurate feedback. So I spent 5 hours here at the house just riding it around, doing heat cycles, and just breaking it in the way the manual says to. The other time has now been able to take it out to a few places. I have taken the bike to Enoree down in South Carolina, and then also took it to Windrock, which is up on our YouTube channel. And then I also wanted to just kind of compare it, 2-stroke versus 4-stroke, to my 2016 KTM 250 SXF. So it is an SX model. So this is the motocross 4-stroke, but as you can tell, it looks more like a woods bike. So it has been converted. The guy that I got it from did a phenomenal job, spent a lot of time and money in kind of converting this bike over. So what does that mean? So basically, converting it to a woods bike went to an 18-inch rear versus the 19-inch rear. Did put a larger gas tank on it. It has, the suspension has been built and valved for more woods riding, some softer, just different reacting type riding. He did gear the bike. So the bike has a 51-tooth rear sprocket, a 13-tooth front sprocket to get that gear ratio down there. A couple specs about this bike just to do some comparison for you. So this being a 2016, I did find that most people say somewhere around 43, 44 horsepower on average as a stock bike. This particular bike does have a full FMF exhaust, but that's basically all that's been done to it. The bike's been rebuilt a few times. It actually has 167 hours on it as I'm bringing this video to you. And bike is super awesome. Probably the strongest 254 stroke that I've owned. And compared to a lot of my friends' 250s, this bike is super strong, and it does really well. Rides good. The bike does have just a few, ins and outs, some just kind of add-on things, has some pegs, and just some different things like that. Nothing major done to the bike. The bike does weigh roughly 218 pounds dry. That's as a stock SX model. The seat height is 37.7 inches. It is a 5-speed transmission in this particular bike, and then of course we have different wheel size on the rear. The tire size is a little bit bigger tire size on it though. This one is a 120 by 120 90/18 I believe, and an 80/121 on the front, and so it's set up really good. I've rode this bike a lot, had this bike to Windrock and all kind of places. Really love this bike. This bike is just really cool. Grew up on a 2-stroke, kind of wanted to go back into the 2-stroke world. I rode this identical bike. A friend of mine has it, and I instantly fell in love with the bike. And so before we get into my comparison on these two bikes, I'll give you the specs on this one. 2022 Husqvarna TX300i. This bike is said to weigh roughly 224 pounds dry. Couldn't find a lot of horsepower specs on the 2-stroke, but I was seeing some numbers somewhere around the mid-40s, about equivalent to this. I don't know how accurate that is. I don't have a dyno myself. This bike does have a 6-speed transmission. Comes factory with a 13-tooth front, 51-tooth rear. It does have a 110/100/18 on it in the rear, and a 90/90/21 on the front. So fairly close, apples to apples, in a 4-stroke, 2-stroke. This is a spring suspension. They didn't go to air until 2019, I believe. So this bike is an air suspension. So instead of having the spring, air pressure acts as your spring. A lot of your racers, I'm finding they don't like the air suspension, but I want to make this very clear. I'm not a racer. I'm not a real good rider. We just ride for fun. So for me personally, I am loving having the air suspension. I love the adjustability. I can hook my shock pump on there and really tweak and just kind of fine tune that air pressure for my weight. And just to give you what I'm running right now, I'm really liking about 143 pounds. And I'm out roughly 20 clicks from all the way down. So I'm out about 20 clicks on the compression. I think about 20 clicks on the rebound. I'm still working with rebound a little bit, but I'm finding that thing is just like a pillow. It soaks it up. But what I love about the air suspension is if my wife wants to ride it, you know, I can easily take some air out of that thing and set this thing up for her quickly. Whereas in spring suspension, those springs are set for a certain weight range, and you're not going to get the adjustability out of it. I understand in racing scenarios, a lot of people just seem to love spring better, stays more consistent. But right now I'm loving the air. So totally loving the WP air fork system. A little bit more about this bike. The only things that I have done to this bike is put the hand guards on it. I have put the carbon fiber pipe guard, put a skid plate, and that's pretty much all I've done to the bike. And again, I'm absolutely loving it. Now the power differences. I really thought that these two bikes would be real close. I thought maybe the 250 could possibly be a little quicker. That is not the case, in my opinion, based on riding on both. This bike is much quicker than the 250 4-stroke, and I mean, it's a good bit to hang on to. So I'm very impressed with the power. What I do love about this 2-stroke is the power is very linear. So you can adjust the power valve on these some. Manual recommends that you don't do that, but you can do so. Me personally, I have adjusted the power valve a little bit on this. It just determines exactly when that power comes in, when that power valve opens. And so what I love about the power of this bike is it's just super linear. The more you get into it, it's still pulling. Whereas I find that the 4-stroke sometimes is real snappy on the throttle, can be kind of a little harsh power, kind of explodes when you get into it. And so I am definitely digging this 2-stroke. This is a TPI bike, so it is one of the transport injection or throttle port injection, some people call it. I know a lot of your racers, professionals, they do not like it because there has been some issues with TPI through the years. If you do your research, you'll find there's been way less issues with it than there has been, but for some reason some people don't like it. I personally wanted a TPI bike where it mixes your oil and gas together. There's a lot of good information out there on the web of how long people are getting out of these engines before they're replacing pistons, and these motors are just going for a really long time, and the mixture and the way the computer works has just been really awesome. Another reason I wanted a 2-stroke again was for the maintenance. It is definitely a lot less maintenance to have a 2-stroke than it is a 4-stroke. You're constantly checking your valves, recommended about every 10 hours you check your valve spacing, and then they have to be adjusted, which I've done. It's not crazy hard, it does take some time, but thank you YouTube for the lessons on that. And you do have to buy some tools, but a little different. So that's kind of the gist of the two bikes, but I want to just give you real quick before I finish up. The reason that I'm liking the 2-stroke so much better than the 4-stroke. I already said that the power delivery is much smoother and more linear. So for instance, we're at Windrock in some rocky places and tight places where it seemed to be a little harder to kind of keep the 250 going at a good momentum. Again, I'm not a professional rider. The 2-stroke, I could keep this thing in like 3rd gear, and this thing will tractor. I mean, you can't hardly kill these bikes. And so 2nd, 3rd gear on some real hard technical stuff, most time I was riding 3rd and 4th gear. If it kind of lugged down, the bike would lug. As soon as I get into it, the power valve starts to open and the bike just takes off. I find that the 4-stroke, you kind of flame out. If you get this bike kind of bogged down and you're not keeping it RPM'd, it's easy to flame out on you. And what that means is that's just the compression in the cylinder. You're not turning enough RPMs. I'm not a mechanic, so I might mess that up. But basically, the RPMs get down. You don't have that thing turn out enough because the compression in the engine, it'll stall it out. So I find that this thing you can't hardly kill, and you will, you know, my riding style, you know, I did tend to flame this bike out every now and then on the trail. Although this bike is heavier, it seems to be lighter. It seems to be more nimble on the trails, and just overall just super pleasurable to ride. In the comparison of these two bikes, I will say this: for my riding style, for my ability, hands down, no regrets getting the two-stroke. I would buy this bike time and time and time again. I'll go as far to say I do like it a lot more than I like this, you know, just being a four-stroke. I love this bike. You know, I'm not going to say that I would never do four-stroke again or anything in that such, because I love how the four-strokes run. But in the woods, I am digging the two-stroke 300 bike. So just a little bit of information coming from, you know, just somebody who rides. We ride for fun and pleasure, and we're not out here racing. We're just out here having a great time. I highly recommend a two-stroke. It doesn't have to be you know, Husqvarna or a KTM. I do love their products. I believe their products are super awesome. But you know, Yamaha's making a really good X model bike. They're making the 125 YZ125X. They're making a YZ250X. I haven't got to ride either one of those yet. I really would like to spend some time on one. I know some guys that I've met on some trails that have them. They seem to really like them in the two-stroke. And of course, you have Beta and Shearco and a few of those others, you know, still making two-strokes. Highly recommend it. Again, the one thing I didn't point out, this is an electric start bike. Both of them are, so you're not kicking them. So it's a pretty fair comparison, but hands down, all day long, I'm going to recommend the Husqvarna. And just, it's an absolute blast. And you know, just hopefully some of this information helped, coming from just an everyday rider. So if you have any questions, shoot us a message, list some comments down below. I'll do my best to answer them. Hopefully I didn't really leave anything out that's important to you. But if I did, again, just drop us a comment, send us a message, and I'll be more than happy to answer that for you, or help you find an answer for it. Please, if you like this, give us a thumbs up. Please share it. And please, if you have not subscribed, subscribe to our channel. That helps us tremendously in being able to bring you content like this. So thank you for listening to me. Hopefully this information helped. Four-stroke versus two-stroke. I'm picking two-stroke. And as we always say here at 828 Outdoors, remember, faith, family, fun, and God bless.